Welcome from the desert with Thomas and the all-new Audi e-tron. In this full review, we're going to take a detailed look on the exterior, the interior and the driving experience of the series production model of this Audi EV. Today also with road driving dynamic and also a range test. So, what's the performance in the different aspects? Please join us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Here you can see the LED daytime running light signature. It starts already with LED headlamps, optional the ones you can see here, the LED matrix lights, and those also have a special high beam function then. Yeah, from the front it looks like the other Audi SUVs, for example, with this big single frame grille. However, you see the grille is a little bit more closed, just little openings here, and I also have an interesting cutaway model. So behind this very front grille there is basically another layer, and there you have some active layers. They can open when the cooling is needed and they close again when the cooling is not needed, and that improves the wind efficiency then. So pretty interesting for sure. And a lot of sensors are of course being used. For example, you can also see in the front camera and some more sensors here in the front, and the big e-tron badge right there. So you can see with this vehicle, when we see it now in the series production model, they're not going the way, oh, EVs have to be special. They more make it normal looking with some accentuations, and I think that's also a right way. What do you think? 4.90 meters or 16'1" is the total length of the Audi e-tron. So for European taste, that's a full-size SUV basically. And I think just from a basic shape, we'll soon show you another Audi Q8 review. To me, it is basically an electric Q8. Those ones here are already quite bigger rims, so in this case 20-inch. There are different styles available. You get styles which look like really electric vehicle alike, more streamlined, and then you get some normal old school wheels. You can pick that definitely. You can even go a little bit bigger if you want. There's the e-tron badge right there, also the charging port, we'll soon feature that too. Then there's the design line, dropping line right there. And I'll also show different colors. This one here, our main color for today, is called Galaxy Blue. And depending on the individual light, it looks a little bit brighter or darker, sometimes even a little bit greenish. My favorite one would be the Antigua Blue. That is a bright Thomas Blue, as we call it here on Autogefuehl. But there's also, for example, a so-called Siam Beige. Also different depending on the light it is in. And also we got a Catalonia Red. So those four colors here for you today. There will be more available quite soon. And you see in vehicle colors also some small wing and already forming some stronger shoulders. So it is not exactly an SUV coupe, but comes close to it a little bit. Here, crossover wheel arches. If you like, you can also go for the S-line and then have it painted in vehicle color. So all those big electric vehicles weigh over 2 tons, and here 700 kilograms of that is the battery, so that's the main weight point. You save weight for the not existing engine, but then again the battery. And I also have a cutaway model there for you, where you can see how the battery is being placed in the lower part of the vehicle. That brings the center of gravity down, also gives you a good agile performance, promised at least, and 50-50 weight distribution front rear. There's a motor in the front and an electric motor in the rear, so 2 electric motors overall, and so there's no physical connection between front and rear, but you still have the all-wheel drive. We can also take a look at individual cells right there. Pretty interesting for sure, always to take a look at those cutaway models. And now to something very special. First of all, let me say, those virtual mirrors, the camera that is placed inside here, is not standard, it's an option. So the base car, and everyone can go for that, just for normal mirrors. Whew, glad you can. Then there's a camera here, just for the round view camera, for the infotainment system, but the main camera, of course, for the screen inside is right here. And well, you can also fold it in, by the way, just when someone hits it, for example, for safety. But the main question is, since we can drive this car on the road here today, also with public traffic, is it really useful? So far, maybe you have seen fancy Instagram posts about it or so, because it's very visual. You can really take good photographs and video of it. It looks cool, but is it also cool and useful to use? We will find out very soon, and I can tell you, it will be very surprising. One thing to say in advance, they are also connected with the blind spot monitor. When you look at them and then have some, traffic next to you, it also flashes yellow, for example. That's definitely a very helpful thing. But what I'm really looking forward to is, how does it perform just when you have very normal situations? Looking at the rear end, wow, what a spectacular landscape here in the desert near Abu Dhabi. So you see the light strip goes all the way across the vehicle. Interesting LED daytime running light also at the sides. There's an e-tron badge right there, and you see that the top part hangs a little bit over, but over I think it's not too daring, rather elegant design here too. And those strange naming stuff, 55 Quattro, 55, well, why are they doing that? They want to be able that you compare it, for example, to a petrol engine, which is also maybe, or diesel, which also at 55, that you can see, oh, they're in the same horsepower range. But how many horsepower? That doesn't leave any trace or hint for that. So what do you think here of the design of the all-new Audi e-tron? And by the way, the towing capacity is at 1.8 tons or 4,000 pounds, and that's pretty much reasonable for an electric vehicle. Not so many electric vehicles offer towing capacity anyway overall yet, but they do. So about charging this 95 kilowatt hour battery, you just open the charging port right there, and there's the AC charger. If you open the lower one, you also get the DC charger. AC charging is either with 11 kilowatts or with 22 kilowatt if you go for that option, or then the DC with 150 kilowatt. And well, you need the according station for that. We have it right here, and then we just put it in like this. And in this case, it automatically starts charging, and we can also check it at the interior. And we do get as standard, it's pretty cool. This is the other side, so not the driver's side, the co-driver side. Another AC charger, so the DC charging just possible at the driver's side. This one here is just, most people usually charge at home, maybe then with AC. And this is a good possibility that you don't have to move to a certain spot at the charging station or so, or at home, that you can have the access from both sides. Pretty good idea. car key. The e-tron does not get a very specific key, but just a special badge it has on the key. You can also get a soft close. This one does not have it, so when we don't have a soft close, then we can test the door closing sound. That sounds very solid. So let's open it, and we have a beige, a bright interior style here, which is pretty cool color-wise. A nice bright Alcantara at the inside of the doors. This one then is a soft leatherette cover. The top part here of the door is also from soft material. Door handles, and if you have those mirrors for the side mirrors, like the camera side mirrors we've been talking about, there you have, for example, I can already see it. I can already show you right there. You can also adjust them a little bit. Yeah, so you can change the view a little bit right here. Hello, hey guys. And then you can also change the other side of the mirrors. Now the rest of the interior, you can see it is basically an electric Q8 also interior wise. Really modern and stylish, but a lot of black piano use for sure. This one here, as for the decor elements, you can see this is a structure. So it's a rather rough structure, but it feels good and high class too. If we focus at the seats, there are 3 different seat forms. There's a base seat, there's a sport seat with more side accentuation, and this one is the so-called multi-contour seat, the most comfortable one. The seat form is really great. However, here they lack sustainability because they only offer animal skin surfaces. Well, at least there's no seat without it. So you can get in the sport seat an Alcantara on the inside, but there are still animal skin surfaces somewhere else and on the outside and stuff. And there's also a seat available with some fabric parts, but still also leather in it. And then this one here, the full animal skin equipment. In their new e-tron GT, the sports car concept, they showed an animal-free interior. That's where the future is. But we clearly see that Audi is not in the future yet and not in the present, but rather in the past as for this aspect. Then let's take seating position. Again, the seat form is super comfortable, so they have taken a giant leap forward for that. So at the moment, those Audi seats are the most comfortable, or among the most comfortable in the business. That's really cool. Height-wise, it's also not a problem. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", still leaves a lot of headroom. This one here without a panoramic roof, so that of course always gives you more headroom. In this case, the electric steering wheel control. You can control in height and in reach. But of course, almost everything you see here is still an extra, so we can easily go up with the prices. Then the electric seat control, we also have a seat massage function when you press this small button, and then you can change different massage functions in the central infotainment system. And this is also pretty cool. Again, it's an option, of course, but that's a pretty cool option. So if you want some more comfort on long-term rides with an electric car, well, mid-term rides with an electric vehicle, then you should probably go for the massage function. So yeah, I mean, you sit very comfortable here, and it's really good that I, at the moment, also have the Audi Q8, so I can really compare it and say, yeah, also seating-wise, interior-wise, it's an electric Audi Q8, and I think the overall impression is really good. The material build quality is really superb, and it's a really good, comfortable position. I can just, sit here and relax and enjoy the massage. Interior overview. First of all, the screens. 12.3 digital instruments, 10.1 top screen, 8.6 lower screen with a climate unit. Soon more details to each individual screen. We have this structured surface here again. On the top, e-tron badge logo and a leatherette cover right there. And this one is also soft touch. We can play around with it a little bit. And the head-up display unit in the very front right there. This one overlaps just a little bit. An interesting part is definitely also this lower part with this special shifting lever. You put it back to put a gear in and park at the side. This one is completely new. And then you have this flying middle console, which is a little bit strange because, you can... I mean, it shall be a very new design element, but I think I'm not sure if it's really useful, I think a design also has to be useful. And then inside you can also find some more space to put things, or maybe also the key, another 12-volt power supply. There's also 2 USB slots right there, and you can also fold out cup holders then. Last but not least, there's this middle armrest where you can, for example, store a microfiber tissue to have all those surfaces clean all the time. Oh, that's cool, right? Turquoise mortars. Nice. And look at that, the inductive charging port for your smartphone is a little bit hidden. It's just the very left side of the middle console, and you have to squeeze your smartphone in a little bit, then it's hold tight and against this inductive charging area. And just to show you, if you do not have the electric steering control here for the adjustment, then it looks like this, and then it's a manual adjustment. You release it right here, then you can still do it in all ways. It's also an easy system. With the digital instruments, you're pretty flexible. You have this view change, for example, if you want the map smaller or bigger. Of course, you can read the GPS very well, but you can also scroll through radio functions, assistance systems, and so on. Head-up display, you can take a look at the current speed, allowed speed, and also some driving assistant information, and also GPS route when it's running. In this digital mirror, again, when we really sit here and the door is closed, and we can also see this is here the side of the vehicle then. You cannot make it closer to the vehicle. You can just make it more far away from the vehicle, and then again hit the reset button, which is again put a little bit too low, I think. And then if we switch here, we can see there's some more. Of course, there's nothing happening here now because we are actually controlling the other side. So here we go. Now I'm using the touch pad or this touch screen on the other side, and the passenger side is being controlled. Oh, there's my backpack right behind the car. But then again, take a look at where this thing is actually placed. I think it's also too low and too much at the side of the doors. Again, I'm really not a fan of this system. Are you? So let's take a look at those screens. Again, the GPS is really fast. Pretty cool. Looks, of course, nice with this satellite view. It's all with touch. And then the first thing I always do with those displays with Audi, I go here to the MMI settings and then deactivate this touchscreen feedback, because I always have to press like really hard. And the thing is here, when it's activated, do it like this, like on the smartphone, nothing is happening. It's maybe like they're thinking people want to have real buttons on the touchscreen. Is that the thought? I'm not sure. If you deactivate it, then you can click like you're used to at the smartphone. You still get this clicking feedback. If you like, you can also deactivate it. But here it's also then easy to control, and you can just click on stuff. That's, I think, how it's supposed to be, actually. There are also some special charging modes here, and visualization, for example, for the e-tron. That is special then for the e-tron. The rest is basically the same as we know from A6, A7, A8, Q8, and so on. And also now the small Audis. Phone connect via Bluetooth, or also via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That's also possible. It would appear right here then, here in the phone apps. Then in the lower part, you get the climate control like this, or you can hold your finger and browse up and down, or use the voice control. Set temperature to 22 degrees.
I'll lower the temperature to 22 degrees.
Oh, we got a male voice today. Interesting. So that's also possible for that. And what's also interesting, that when you when you put in a new route, for example, then the lower part switches either, that you can type in something, some letters, or you can also write. That's possible. Or then again, use the voice control, which is also working quite nice. Usually, let's test it. Take me to Dubai.
Please wait a moment while I search for the destinations. Could you say the line number, please?
So, well, that's not exactly Dubai now, but I could choose a line number now. Let's try it again. Yeah, let's cancel again, just go once more. Navigate to Dubai city center.
I'm afraid it's not possible to enter a street in this town using spoken commands. Please use the MMI touch screen.
Okay, about that. But, you know, at least in Germany, this voice command usually worked very well. Maybe it's a problem here with the region. I don't know. So let's get in the rear. The rear door does not open too wide. The top part here is a little bit harder than in the front, but not entirely hard, so still okay for me. You see, you have to come around a little bit that you can really see me as for the door, but still is enough space, of course. And headroom-wise, it's also no problem here in the back. Again, I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". Knee room is also fine. So, I mean, it's not a short car, so the package is not the best. It should have even a little bit more legroom considering the length. But you can see with 4 adults, absolutely no problem. And also the seating position here in the rear, as you see it rather upright in this SUV, is really good. So it's super comfortable here. Isofix at the outside of the seats. You can flip the seats already from here. We'll also do that from the trunk, of course. And then if we go to this middle part, we have some cup holders right there and some more room. Here we go. You can also just use the middle part as a ski hatch. That's possible. And then there's this thing about electric vehicles. So you don't need a physical connection from front to rear axle if you want the all-wheel drive. So you have engines, well, motors, electric motors at both axles. So that's then the advantage that you can keep the middle tunnel here flat. You don't need a big middle tunnel because, you don't need, something transverse going right there. So indeed it is rather flat here. So you can better put your feet here, for example. But then they put this whole middle unit here. It's actually quite large. So my feet do not fit right there. So I have to put my feet next to it anyway. In the lower part there are 2 more USB supplies and 12-volt power supply. And then this whole climate unit here. I think if they could have made maybe a little bit less voluminous, it would be better here to sit also as a third passenger. However, yes, most people drive maybe with maximum 4 people in cars, but I think if you have an electric vehicle, it would be better to have a more open space here, like Tesla does, for example, in the Model X or in the Model S. So that's better done there, of course. However, Audi has the higher build quality because they have so much experience with that. So there's definitely a pro and contra. Sitting here in the middle seat, I mean, it's of course a little bit harder here as for the surface. It still works with the headroom, yes. And it is better than in a non-electric vehicle because of the lower middle tunnel. But again, I wouldn't recommend it also for longer trips. So first let's open the front. You have to unleash it from the inside where you usually unleash the engine hood bay. But here you can see there's a cover first. You can see some of the electric parts here already. Wiper fluid is right here. So then you put this one here up and have some 60 liters in the front. For example, to store all of the equipment here for the cables, different cables for household plug, AC charging and so on, so that you have your real trunk then clean in the rear. The trunk, either open it here, press the key, or use the foot kick opening mechanism if you have ordered that option. The loading sill here is relatively high, you have to say. Then there are no rails here at the side, so it's wobbling a little bit, but overall still a quite good quality. There's a net if you want to store something, hold something tight. There's some room below that here, but there's extra equipment put in here. You can also fit it with a replacement tire. You can see there's also a special cable for a recuperation app, so that's not a stock, so to say. 12-volt power supply. So this setup here is 600 liters. That's of course very limited, especially in height. I will soon also take the measurements. And the maximum figure is 1,725 liters. So if you flip the seats from here, that's quite practical. And then you can also load things through. And just to put a backpack here inside, you can see the size. And then if I put a backpack in the back, the backpack in the back of the back trunk, then see it doesn't really fit. So that's, you know, because it's falling down here. As for the roof a little bit, you have to put it here, then it also still works with the cover. But even that, you can see that one is still working, but I can't pull it much more in the back because again the height is limited. Still, the trunk overall is actually quite well usable. So from the back of the trunk until the back of the back seats, it's just over 1 meter in length. And here I put the head restraints up now on the right side, and there the head restraint is still in. There you can see the height difference, so you can get the seats a little bit flatter if you like. And again, 2/3, 1/3 split, or also the single split here just in the middle. And the width here is just also over 1 meter, so that's very well usable. And the height, well, at the very rear, this is just 35 centimeters, and then at the rails right here, this is then, yeah, about 57 centimeters. So here we are, road driving with the all-new Audi e-tron, and we'll start with an acceleration, this electric acceleration. 6.6 seconds is the acceleration figure, 0 to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour with 360 horsepower output, or in the boost mode 407 horsepower output, and 5.7 seconds is the acceleration. Let's see if we can get that boost mode activated. We'll put it in dynamic mode, and yeah, we'll also preload it just a little bit. Let's see how that acceleration goes. Preload 50%, and wow, that's already 1:30 it was. That was super quick, and due to this all-wheel drive, so one motor each axle, also a very, let's say, flawless feeling. Pretty interesting. What do you think? Did you check the time code? How fast did we really go? And now to our first real driving part on the road and also in public traffic. And let me start to tell you something about the recuperation modes, because that's really essential for driving. So there's two ways. I can set the recuperation to automatic, then the car is predominantly just rolling. And when I hit the brakes, we can also see it here on our special prepared iPad, where we can see if the car is using the brakes. That would be in red. So, or when it's green, or in turquoise. Those two are recuperation. So turquoise is just basically the rolling recuperation. Green would be a little stronger recuperation. Orange is when I accelerate, so use the power. So you can see here when I lift my foot off the throttle, turns turquoise. Then it's just a rolling recuperation, and we'll see the green recuperation later. And when I would be braking really hard, then it's also red. Yeah, that's hard to hold the third camera then, of course. So, and the thing is, when I'm in this automatic mode, then the car is predominantly set on rolling. That's not a one pedal feeling. So, however, when I use the shifting pedal, I can set 2 recuperation modes, and then the car is recuperating harder when I go off the throttle. But as soon, like this, so recuperating, for example, on the second mode, but as soon as I go on the throttle, this is basically deleted by the car. And the car only goes into this recuperation mode, for example, when there is maybe like an intersection coming or something like that. However, if I now, on the infotainment system, pick manual, then it's more like, you know, from Tesla, for example, like this one pedal feeling, because then the car is remembering what I said on a manual basis. I can have it with the just rolling here, nothing's happening, car's just rolling, which would be more efficient if I want to roll the longest way, of course, so rolling is always more efficient than recuperating, unless you want to reduce the speed anyway, you know, and that's quite often the case. And there you can set the first recuperation mode, and then also when I hit the throttle again, it stays in this mode and goes back to the reducing the speed as soon as I go off the throttle. And also in the second recuperation mode, and that one would be coming closer than to this one pedal feeling or driving. So I think this automatic mode they did for customers who are used to driving normal petrol engine cars maybe. However, if you think about if you go off the throttle there, then you also don't have a rolling, you know. You also have some engine brake. Unless you have a modern automatic system which also uses these rolling or coasting effects or something. And this manual mode is rather than when you have, you know, sorry, when you want to use this one pedal feeling. So you hardly use the brakes ever. And Audi promises that in 90% of the cases the car would be using the recuperation energy or regenerative braking anyway, and you don't need the real brakes. So that's for the theory, and already some views here on our iPad. You can see here when I go off the throttle, then recuperation again is being used. But what about the agile driving? So we're going up the hill now, and then we're going down the hill and have the really heavy recuperation. Let's see how that one plays out. So first, I'll go already here in the dynamic mode. Then I also have the boost function available, which we used in this 0 to 100 or 62 miles an hour acceleration. Otherwise, the boost function in the normal driving modes, it's not available then. In the roundabout, you see this car always has great handling indeed. It feels a little bit smaller than you would actually expect, and that is due to this all-wheel drive system, the electric all-wheel drive, where you can distribute the torque basically where you want it. So really depending on the situation where the torque goes to which wheel. So at the moment I'm setting the standard recuperation mode, the manual one, the manual recuperation mode, because to me this is somehow more natural to an electric vehicle, you know. If I drive an electric vehicle, I somehow expect this one pedal driving feeling, and I don't use the brakes unless, you know, there's an emergency situation and I really need to use the brakes. But now, of course, you can see that very well in this map perspective. There are very nice winding roads here ahead on Rebel Rafet Street. Also very interesting landscape. And there you can see that the steering is really precise of this vehicle, so there's no real dead zone of the steering wheel. Also, you don't have to put much power in it, but the interesting thing they really achieved here, usually when you have a very sporty one, you sometimes have an arcade feeling, but here it is not hard to control, but at the same time it gives you a very natural driving feeling. And usually it's not so much fun to go around those bends in big SUVs, and it isn't big SUV, but still it's a lot of fun and it's really agile to drive. The torque is somehow rear-wheel biased. That also helps with this sporty experience for sure. So it's also what we experienced with our desert ride in Namibia already, that the car really feels very, very sporty. Now, when I go off the throttle, I think it's a really natural feeling somehow, because when I go off the throttle, I really want to reduce speed a little bit, and when I have this recuperation mode on manual, it stays that way. So I somehow don't want the car to decide then when to do what. I want to be in control of my recuperation. But you can surely also argue for another solution, that you have sometimes the rolling, and then when, for example, the ACC is realizing something, then it's recuperating there. I think it's It's really what you're used to and what you want, and you can surely argue for both. Also, just listen how silent it is. So we don't have any engine sound, maybe just like this little EV sound we are hearing. And together with the great noise insulation, it gives me a very calm and silent driving feeling, although it's sporty, and that's definitely fun. And I'm not necessarily missing any engine sound here. It would be maybe a little bit more entertaining to have a V8 sound or something on camera, definitely. But you can still enjoy some sporty driving, and somehow you can also better enjoy the landscape then. And of course, if there are some luggage stuff in the rear flying around, then you can also hear that on camera probably. Wow, what a great twisty winding road here. So this very flexible electric all-wheel drive also gives you the possibility to do some torque steering. So for example, put more torque to the outer wheel than in the corner, and to the inner wheel a little bit less torque, and that pushes the car also in the corner. That's again something that helps with the agility of the car. However, if I want to react a little bit faster as for the cars behind me, I always have to look down into those side mirrors, whereas the electric support for the blind spot warner, that is very well integrated, shown you that earlier. But other than that, so far my experience while driving is that it's more distracting, and you lose some time, because when I look to the side mirror, the normal one, I'm in an area where at the same time I see what is going on in the front of me. But when I look to the screen, I have a second or two where I don't see anything what is going on in front of me. And depending on the speed you're driving, it can be really a couple of seconds where you're basically driving blindfolded. So really great road to drive here, and we're going up about 1,000 meters higher, and this should also deplete the battery just a bit. Later on in this review we'll also do like just flat driving range tests, see how that one plays out as for the very realistic range. And after we've depleted the battery here, we'll go downhill again for the recuperation test and see how much energy can this car actually regenerate when we're going downhill, because it claims to have one of the best regenerative braking system on the market. We'll see how that one plays out very soon. First of all, some more agile driving experience here. Maybe I also heard it from the outside. It's like little EV sound, and you might have heard that starting from 2019, beginning of 2019, I think at least somewhat in the year there are different different embargoes running for that when it has to be implemented finally. So all the new EVs, you can just remember that they have to have a special sound that says, "Hello, I'm electrical, I'm coming," and that does have some sense for sure, because if you cannot see, for example, then you need to hear an electric vehicle, and they're just so silent that in public traffic you need to have a chance to hear that. That's, I think, a very important aspect for sure, even though, I mean, it would be cool if they are silent, but then again, also people need to hear that they're coming, so you can understand both perspectives for sure. So we're going higher and higher and higher, and some more agile corners. Even when I accelerate in the corner, the car stays true to the road. I also don't have too much body roll as for the air suspension. It is rather set on a stiffer tone, the air suspension, so sporty setup for that. Oh, there's another e-tron coming. How did that one get up here so fast? They're already recuperating down there again on the way. So I can just stress what I found with prototype driving this car. It's really sporty. It feels smaller than that it actually is, due to this active and flexible all-wheel drive, the low center of gravity, the precise steering, and at the same time a great noise insulation. So it's such a great car to drive. And you know, in our reviews we always give you pros and cons, and also filming action here. And definitely the biggest pro of this car is that among all the electric vehicles, the big and the small ones, it's one of the best ones to drive and one of the most fun and agile to drive. Next, maybe just to the BMW i3, which is a way smaller car, of course, and therefore way more agile. But again, this concept they're using here really hides a little bit the size of the vehicle. And the Audi Q8 I've been driving recently also with the ICE. It's also a lot of fun. They can surely be compared. They just have a different drivetrain. And now the regenerative braking test. So here it's basically, it doesn't matter if I'm going to automatic or manual, because either I step on the brake now the whole time. Now you can see the green is the braking recuperation on the iPad app. And the turquoise again would just be the coasting here. When I'm just going off the throttle, coasting, recuperation, and green is the braking recuperation. But what I'm doing now, so I don't have to step on the brake all the time, I'm setting the second recuperation mode. And well, no matter if I'm in automatic or manual now, it will stay that way. If I'm in the automatic recuperation mode, if I would go on the gas just once, then it would basically, go back again. In manual, it would stay again when I lift the throttle. So that's the basic difference. But here, for example, you see that the recuperation is actually quite active. So even though we are going down the hill, I am not gaining any speed. And we are at a range of 233 kilometers at the moment. And at the same time, I'm also counting the kilometers we are going down. And actually, well, we are too slow even, so I have to accelerate a little bit. Let's see how many kilometers we are going and how much range we are gaining back. That's the key thing now. So now the iPad is turning orange once more, so when I'm accelerating, he is also going straight. When I lift the throttle, coasting again. You could argue for the automatic mode, for example, when you're on the motorway, that on the motorway coasting is more suitable somehow, and then you use the brake. And again, if you want always the one pedal feeling without having to change it again, then this manual recuperation mode would be the way to go. Of course, you could also somewhat coast with the manual mode. You just don't go off the throttle then, but stay a little bit on the throttle. That's how you do it, for example, in Tesla. So now we're going down in just steadily, and I went to the manual mode now and went in the second recuperation mode, that we can have the maximum recuperation if we want it. And at the moment it's the coasting recuperation still. But the most interesting thing you'll probably find now is, no matter what I do or how I reduce the speed, we will not get into this red area on the iPad, which would be the disc brakes. And so you can see that the disc brake, the normal brakes of the car, will probably not be needed. So now we can reduce speed. I just lift the throttle. This one is still the coasting recuperation. And even now the car is reducing speed just a little bit. So even though more than 2 tons are rolling down the hill, we are not really increasing the speed. Now in the corner I can apply some more brakes. See, it's still, there it is. There was a short moment where I was using the real brakes because there was a little bit more braking power needed then, but that's it basically. And so far it looks quite good. We already gained 2 kilometers of range and we went 2 kilometers down the hill. So it really seems that when you're going down a steep hill, that this car can gain back 1 kilometer of range when you're going 1 kilometer down the hill, and would be the same in miles, of course, or accordingly. That's really interesting. And we don't have to be in the full charging zone for that all the time, even though we're in the half charging zone, so to say, at the moment, when I'm maintaining that speed. Maybe I can also go, when I use the right pedal here, I can switch between recuperation mode 2 or mode 1. So here maybe at the moment the mode 1 is okay. So now I'm staying in the mode 1 and not doing anything on the brakes, not doing anything on the throttle. And for example, when I'm next to the approaching corner, I can go to the recuperation mode 2. And we are gaining a little bit more back. Or maybe 1 again. So you can also just control the car with the pedals here. Almost feels like you would be using a hand. What are they doing there? Pick up with a loose pipe rolling over the street. Interesting to see. Now again a little bit more speed, using the right pedal, mode 1. That's really funny that you just control the speed here with the shift pedals. I mean, why not? That's also an experience. Now a little bit more recuperation again. Mode 2. Outside of the corner, a little bit faster out. Mode 1. Or maybe mode 0. Now rolling, even a little bit faster. That's really interesting. I think it's the first time I controlled the speed really with the pedals. Mode 2 for a little bit faster. Oh, now we're going faster in the corner. Now also those transverse powers are also braking us, of course. The tire friction, not hitting the brakes, not hitting the brakes. Now we're getting slower, of course, because we're in the corner. And now we're at 249 kilometers. And we went down 4 kilometers. So that was not that much. Now 250. So our range is increasing and increasing. And that's of course now something where there's a big advantage if you compare it to an combustion engine car. There the energy is just lost. And here, we have the problem with the range, because if you think about now the according Audi Q8, if I have the 3-liter diesel there and fuel it up, I can approximately drive 1,000 kilometers. Or it would be like 600 miles before refueling, and here it's just a little bit over 300 kilometers or like 180 miles. So that's a big difference. So not such a big difference if you compare it to the petrol engine, of course. But then again, you really have to think about if that makes sense. But however, if you have, for example, a topography where you go uphill and downhill quite a lot, then it can still make sense. Now going down faster. Again, now we're using the second recuperation mode. And even there, steadily going slower, 255, 5 kilometers. So now it's not exactly 1 kilometer per 1 kilometer down, but I think it will increase now when we're going downhill. 256. So you see that goes quite fast, the steeper it is, of course. So I think we could prove here already that the recuperation system is indeed pretty efficient here in this car. And we see how it is at the real downhill of the vehicle. What was it? What have we been starting with? With 237 or something? I think I have to scroll back in the video and see myself. So that was even I think an even better result. Seemed like. So now we, when it was a little bit steeper, we made up some energy. So now we went down 6 kilometers, and we're at a range of almost 260 kilometers now. So that was even more. So because that was not a kilometer we've been driving here. I think we were starting at 237. So when it was really steep here, we are almost gaining like 2 kilometers of range per going 1 kilometer down. It's pretty impressive. So we also have some off-road riding for you here today, just a little bit soft off-roading with the Audi e-tron. Those are here again the prototype vehicles because, well, they probably thought, you know, they can get wasted now on the off-road, let's put them on rough terrain, and the other ones, the series production models, the shiny ones, well, let's keep them on the road. So the air suspension can raise a little bit, so there's a little difference then. The total difference is, instructor, the total difference is 7.6 centimeters, so it goes 5 centimeters up on demand here on the off-road mode and 2.6 centimeters down. So when you go 2.6 centimeters down, then when you're going faster, for example, it's also nice to see in the front now, 2.6 centimeters down, when you're going faster, the car has less wind resistance, is better for handling. And here again, put it all the way up the 5 centimeters, that's then the overall difference, 7.6. This car is already squeaking a little bit, probably had some more off-road maneuvers already, and we've been to Namibia also on this desert lake. You should tune into that episode later on as well, because that was some fast off-road driving with drifting and so on, because it's also majorly about the all-new all-wheel drive, the electric all-wheel drive they put in here. And well, it's another Quattro system because Quattro is just their brand name for their all-wheel drive systems. And the thing is that here you have no physical connection from front to rear axle, so both electric motors work on their own basically, but adjust the speed. You have a rear wheel bias, so that makes the car drive a little bit sportier then, and also you don't need like a differential lock or something, because you can also distribute the power between those individual wheels, and that also works against understeering. And when you also put the ESC off, then you can really do some nice drifting actions. Again, check out this action episode we've done in Namibia. That was really, really cool. Here today, some slower off-road riding, seen also, you know, some angle change here, for example, and just to get a feeling for that vehicle here. So it's also easy to control off-road. The steering is light, but still offers you a feeling of, you know, you actually always know what you're in, what to do. The air suspension, remember that when you put an air suspension higher, you lose comfort because you have less negative travel then. That's a very interesting aspect, but still, you feel that you're driving an off-road vehicle with an air suspension. Because all of the bumps here, they are evened out quite well still. However, it does not have a very, very soft off-road setup as well as suspension, because they primarily also want to tune for the city and motorway driving, that you can drive a little bit sportier still. So that's the main focus for sure of that vehicle. And what we've also experienced already in Namibia, when you're driving here through the landscape, this is a designated track here, you're also silent for everyone that is outside. So that makes you, for example, when you think about using it as a safari vehicle or something, then you can approach also maybe, you know, animals in the park or something, you can approach it a little bit better, and you don't annoy them with loud engine sound or something like that. That's, I think, also a very, very interesting aspect for sure. So, you know, go a little bit faster. We're in this off-road mode once again, and the car just gives me a very good feeling. And I think this electric all-wheel drive aspect really could be something for the future, also for even for hard off-road driving, because you got instant torque when you need it, and you can really finely tune it where you want to have it. So you don't need an off-road gear reduction, for example. All those special off-road features are rather done because of the, you know, of the technological stuff that you had initially, you know, with internal combustion engine and different gears, transmission, and so on and so on. And here you actually don't need it. So with the electric one, you can just control it in a very different way. I think that's definitely a very interesting aspect. The overall ground clearance is about 17 centimeters. Again, you can lift it up a little bit higher then, but this car does not have the premium ground clearance, so it's not for hard off-road use and for some really like steep inclines and so on. You see here, even here, I have to go rather slow. I don't scratch the ground and stuff. Hill descent control, even in this short part, was already activated. The car is doing that by itself automatically. Quite a rocky surface, but still, you know, it's also pretty silent, you know. So usually when you're driving over, like also like with those older diesel cars or something, it's over like, but here, I think, especially when you're going to some nice nature roads or something, or also normal roads with good landscape, if you have the silent electric vehicle, you can enjoy it even more. Because, you know, when you're driving on the racetrack, I think that's maybe a part where you think, okay, the sound is really missing. But here, I think no one would say that sound or something would be missing in this case. Or what do you think? So, very interesting always to drive a little bit off-road here with the e-tron. And again, I really recommend you, if you want some more high-speed off-road driving, to tune in to our other episode there. I will also link it in the video description, then you can enjoy more of that. And now we want to drive rather calm and also maybe a little bit just straight to see what about that realistic range. So at the moment this car here is filled up with energy about 98%, it's said, and the predicted range is always calculated, you know, among the last driving situations and so on. And this here at the moment is 360 kilometers prediction, which would be not so much actually. Let's see how that one plays out, definitely. And also let's take a look at the energy consumption, because then we can also calculate. Oh, by the way, if you hear this like rubber sound, it's because the you know, the sole of my shoes meets this super fresh rubber pad of the pedals. It's obviously so fresh that it still gives a sound. Also very interesting. I mean, what can you find on details on those vehicles? Even when going straight, you always got a very connected feeling to the car. The car still feels light somehow, and of course also super silent. So at the moment, going here at about 60 kilometers an hour, and it's really super silent and super relaxing. So this already great sound installation is meeting the electric drive, the silent electric drive of this vehicle. And that's a great match. So this works very well together. And since I've also recently driven the Audi Q8, I can really compare it. And this is indeed a better driving feeling, because it is a lot of fun to enjoy this silence. That's really pretty cool. So the most confusing thing again with the mirrors is you have to look more down. And I think the thing is with the mirrors, I mean, if you look at this mirror, if you look at that side mirror and then that side mirror, the normal ones, it somehow gives you an overall feeling, a three-dimensional feeling of your surrounding. But since those are here, flat screens, they don't deliver you that. So that's, I think, also another problem. And also when you control them, you know, while driving, that's way more distracting to control those while driving than you would do it with the electric mirror control right there, because then you also look a little bit more upright, more like here, and here you look here. That's again another problem. So I just have to, I can just mention that again. I think this is the biggest technology, one of the biggest technology fails I've recently seen in a vehicle. I mean, I'm really sorry for the engineers that took out to this technology, because there's a lot of know-how behind it, and they surely put a lot of thought in it, but it just clearly doesn't work. So if you order this vehicle, order it without this option, and I mean, have some good food for the money you saved there, because it's a couple of €1,000 extra in price. It's really not worth the effort. Just maybe to show off to your friends, hey, I got this new technology feature or something. It looks cool, it's a great wow effect, but effectively, while using it, while driving, it's an absolute technology fail. I can just, I'm always honest with you guys. So now going on the motorway, and rather some straight. I mean, I've been doing some cruising driving here anyway, but we also want to keep it realistic, that we don't have to just like 60 kilometers an hour and cruise control. So we also had some, stopping, and then with recuperation test and something should still be realistic. And after this playing around, we have a consumption of 24 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. So that's, in this case, right, it's really hard to put it out to 100 miles, but I know that would be like 24 kilowatt hours per 60 miles. Interesting is that is somewhat comparable to the one of Tesla Model S, or to the Tesla Model X, to other big electric vehicles which are at the same weight approximately. The weight, of course, is predominantly controlled by the battery they put in here. Whereas the smaller electric vehicles, that AJ and Michelle have recently been filming the Hyundai and Kia smaller models, and in this case they started with the Kia e-Niro. Sorry, it's the e-Niro, right? So since Robert De Niro took on testimonially being for this car, everyone says, oh, it's called Niro. So everyone calls it Niro now, and they are also calling it Niro. So let's call it Kia e-Niro. That one had a consumption of about 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So yes, smaller electric vehicles are more sustainable, because it's like with the combustion engine cars, they use less electricity because they also need to move less weight and so on. So we'll watch the consumption here, of course, for you. Like this situation now. I was looking at the mirror, at the camera again, and I thought, okay, so I did do the mirror view, right? So I can change. I didn't even look at the screen. You can say, okay, it's my fault, but it's something you're so used to while driving a car. It's really hard to get that out of your veins. It's in our blood that we look at the mirror. Yeah. So we control our speed here, because the fines here in Abu Dhabi are actually pretty high. So at the moment now at 120 kilometers an hour. So that's actually a good motorway speed, So that's like 70 miles an hour. It's again super silent. What a great ride as for that. You can really relax. I don't have to raise my voice in any way. Then the air suspension, which is set on a rather sporty note, is giving me still good feedback. It's not too soft, but also not too hard. It's definitely not one of those flying carpet ride air suspensions where it's really soft. I always say when I want an air suspension, I want it rather soft, because that's the reason I go for an air suspension. But here I think it's still a good compromise. It's the same with the Audi Q8. We've experienced really good to the ride, and still a sporty experience whatsoever. Now at 140 kilometers an hour, which is allowed here. It's one of the very rare countries outside of Germany where you can drive more than 100 or maybe more than 120 on motorways here, so at 140. And still, super silent. The car is very well to control. it's super stable, and the precise steering feeling here also at the higher speeds. So even the smallest commands, see here, have an effect on what's happening on the road. So it is still light to control, but super precise, and it's just good to know that something is happening and it doesn't have a real dead zone or something. And now also something very interesting is happening. As soon as I went up now, just those 20 kilometers, consumption went up too. And that's of course happening with ICE cars anyway, now at 28 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So of course there's more wind resistance now, and the car basically has to fight against this. The AC is running, but it's not too hot outside here yet. Outside 23.5 degrees Celsius, so that's something in the, like beginning of the 80s Fahrenheit region, I think that should be. So let's say we drive like this now all the time. Let's see what the vehicle says. It says 315 kilometers of range left. I mean, we've driven a little bit now. Let's reduce the speed again to 120 and see how that one plays out then. That should drop the consumption once more. So now at 27.4, so a little bit definitely, and the overall is again, it's 27 overall at the moment for the trip so far. And if we then calculate it, if it's a 95 kilowatt hour battery and it's about 27 kilowatt hour consumption on 100 kilometers, that's of course not 400, because I mean, an easy calculation would be like say 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers and 100 kilowatt hours battery, like with the Tesla. That's 400 kilometers of range. And with the Teslas, we indeed had like 400, sometimes like 420, 430, something like that. Audi claimed at one point that they can even do better than Tesla, and obviously they can't. So yeah, I think 400 kilometers is maybe not the most realistic range figure, but if you calculate now, it would be small, something like 360 kilometers, so something less than 200 miles, so maybe like 180, 190 miles or something like that. This one is then rather a realistic figure. We drive on this car a little bit longer and see how that plays out, and also give you a report later on. But I think, you always have to be realistic. The same with the normal fuel figures. Overall, the range is still enough that you can do the most things you want to do with this car. That's, I think, still fine. And it's not that you have this range anxiety all the time. The big advantage, again, if you compare it to a Tesla here with the Audi e-tron, is it's way more silent, especially at higher speeds. You hear that already now. Of course, the case is here with the electric vehicles. When you drive faster, you only have wind noise. You have nothing from the engine. And that, on a subjective note, could actually increase the possible wind noise you are hearing. So you have to deduct that effect, basically. But still, if you then compare the Audi to the Tesla, the Audi is way more silent here at the higher speeds. They just have more experience in noise insulation and all the engineering stuff. That's, by the way, also one thing where the virtual mirrors are good for. So there's less wind noise from this area then. That's the only good thing I can see with this technology. And I'm not finished with blaming them, because now when the sun is coming from the side, it's like, take your laptop outside at 12 o'clock and at a sunny day. What can you see at your laptop screen? It's exactly what you can see here now at this screen right there. So you can see something, but it's not good to see, not at all. Yeah. So very interesting driving impressions here with the Audi e-tron. Also here on just going straight. It's a great car to go straight. Super comfortable from seats, super silent. Plus enjoying the silent electric ride. That's really amazing. Consumption, now went up over to 29 kilowatt hours or more kilometers. So yes, still the case when you drive a little bit faster, consumption goes up even more. So the promised range figures are not really there right yet. So I think we got some realistic stuff from you now, more realistic than the official figures, of course. And we'll keep you updated how it went on the further drive. Hope you also enjoyed this extensive information right here. So now to our conclusion for today. Glad you joined us here for this full review. And after I finish the conclusion, please also join the episode from Namibia where we really rocked it out with the e-tron on the sand surface. Well, exterior-wise, I think it's very well done. It's an elegant design, and I mean, it's basically an electric Q8, so to say, if you just look from the exterior. On the interior, got a great build quality and also a very elegant and clean design for sure. You can argue about if you need a central controller or if it's enough with the touchscreen while driving. You know, while driving, it's quite often better not to use the touchscreen, so that's surely an argument. But overall, the software is quite intuitive to use. However, one big flaw for a supposed to be sustainable vehicle, of course, that they still set all the sails on animal skin. But with their recent concept car, Audi has shown that they want to change that now bit by bit at least. But they should have already done that here with this vehicle. From the room you have inside, it's also quite okay. In the rear trunk, well, it's not too high, but other than that, you can very well use this car, yes. You feel that it's not initially an all-electric platform. It's still this base from the MLB, which they're using for the A6, A7, A8, Q8, Q7 and so on. So that's a different, for example, to Tesla. Tesla builds the car from scratch as an electric vehicle. Here you have some points where you see they did not do that. That will follow later, a little bit later in the Volkswagen Corporation, first for the smaller cars, then for the bigger cars. But Audi wanted to put this car on the market now. You know, they are already quite late. The biggest fail of this car are those virtual mirrors. I think they're really dangerous. Please do not pick them if you buy this vehicle, and also give the manufacturer a feedback. I have tested it now thoroughly, and yes, if you get used to it, you will handle them a little bit better, that's for sure. But still, you always have to look a little bit further down, and that distracts you. It takes more time to look up again, and especially when it's sunny. It's like working on a laptop when it's sunny. It just doesn't work for me, and I think it will also not work for you. And the second flaw is the range we were expecting. Figures as for 250 miles or 400 kilometers. Audi even promised more. But what we realistically found, without super hammering it, is more 300 something plus kilometers or 180, 190 miles. And that's still enough for most situations. But if you think about that, realistic Tesla figures with the big battery is rather 400, 450 kilometers and definitely more than 200 miles. And that also, like from Hyundai and Kia, they're smaller cars, they are also reaching those ranges now. So the range is indeed a little bit disappointing. The consumption was a little bit too high, between 26 and even 30 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that's just too much. But now to the biggest strength of this vehicle. It drives so incredibly well. Due to this electric all-wheel drive and the basically free distribution, it feels like a smaller car. It almost handles like a compact hatch or so. We also experienced that in our prototype ride in Namibia. This is so agile with the AWD. It's so silent on the one hand, due to the great insulation and so on, so you can drive also really fast. That's, by the way, also they have something ahead in Tesla, the production quality and also the noise insulation. So at higher speeds, it's still very, very silent. It's a great ride. The seats from the form are also so comfortable, and together with all of that, you have a super comfortable ride, but at the same time, it's very sporty, although you have an air suspension, which is again, you know, a balance between sportiness and comfort. So I cannot stress too much how well it is to ride this car. So that's actually the biggest strength. And from driving, I think it's at the moment the best electric vehicle. But concept-wise, we've explained to you some of those factors. They're surely lacking some things yet. And overall, I think definitely one of the very interesting cars here at the moment of the market. I think we could very well show you the pros and cons, and I hope you enjoyed this Autogefuehl episode with us.